Hello, jewelers, and welcome to Expressive Features of Art and Design, featuring your host, Miss Salzman. That's me. Hello. Yeah, okay, I know that was really dumb. This is only my second screencast, and I'm probably gonna mess things up a lot, and it's gonna be great because, we're all learning how to do this together. So, anyway, please don't make fun of my terrible jokes, but it's gonna happen. So, today we're talking about expressive features of art and design. And if you've ever taken an art class before, chances are you have heard of expressive features of art and design. However, you may have heard of them as the elements and principles of design. Ringing a bell yet? If not, that's okay. You'll see. You'll remember. Oh, guys, my cat's here. Do you hear her purring and meowing? Whenever I'm on the phone, she gets really jealous and wants to show up and talk. And she probably thinks I'm on the phone right now because I'm talking to my computer, which is great. Anyway, let's go on. So, what are the elements and principles of art? Do you hear her purring? Okay, sorry. Back to elements and principles. Now, we're going to talk about the elements first. And here is what they all start with: T, L, V, S, S, F, and C. Any thoughts as to what any of these might be? This kind of feels like when you were a little kid, did you watch TV shows and they would talk to you in the TV show and they'd be like, "Where's my bucket?" or something, and then the little kids shout at it and go, "Right there, right there." That's what this feels like, where I'm like talking and then I leave a space for you to think. You should talk to it. Texture! Oh, did I give one away? Whoops. All right, well, let's talk about it. So the elements are the features that you use to create your art piece. So in order to make any piece of art, you're going to need some of these things. You might use all of them, you might use one of them, but you're going to need elements of art. The elements are texture, line, value, space, shape, form, and color. Now let's take a closer look. What element do you think is being used here? There's a few, but primarily we're using line. So these all are using different types of lines. With these two, we have pretty straight and geometric type lines. Over here, we have kind of a combination of geometric lines with also more of an organic and flowy set of lines as well. Line is really primary in all of these pieces. What about these? Color is really important in these ones. How about these pieces? Texture, you got it. So when we think about texture, I want to think about how it would feel. So if you were to come and touch these cotton balls here, or pom-poms, or whatever they are, think of how they would feel. They'd feel very soft probably, versus if you came and touched this sculpture made of colored pencils, you would get quite a different feeling. And over here we got some texture going on these beaded earrings. And then there's also this different type of texture here on these anklets and how the chain might feel on your skin. And then also thinking about how does it look, kind of what type of, does it have a smooth look to it? Does it have a rigid look to it? And things like that. What do you think we're going with here? Value. So a lot of times we talk about value with art, and particularly jewelry, people tend to think, oh, money. But we're not talking about money with value here and monetary value. We're talking about value as in light to dark and the range of light to dark. And with these, we see like these jewels have a range from a very light to a very dark gem here. I'm also seeing a range of value in these blues on this stone over here as well. Value probably doesn't come up in jewelry as much as it does in some other types of art, but it's definitely important to know. All right, what do you think we got going here? Shape. So when we talk about the elements and principles, there's both shape and form. And generally, I tend to think of shape as two-dimensional and form as three-dimensional. Sorry, my cat just jumped up in front of my computer. You're jealous, aren't you? Yes, okay. You can still hang out. Are your guys' pets enjoying having you around more? I bet so. All right, so we have these, pretty basic shapes going on over here in both of these. I have to tell you guys, the reason why I included this picture that's on the right is because there were two different girls that were wearing these earrings on The Bachelor this last season, and they're so ugly, and I hate them. So then I searched, like, jewelry with shape, and this came up, and I was like, so I had to put it in here. Yeah, a lot of the examples I have, a lot of them I think are super cool. I'd wear them myself. I'd want to make them myself. Some of them I put in here because I think they're a very interesting art piece. Like they could look really cool on display. Maybe not so much one you'd wear every day, but beautiful in that. And then sometimes they're not as cool, but yeah. Anyone beg to differ? Anyone like these earrings? Anyone own these earrings? You should think about returning them. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, moving on. Form. So here, with form, we have, like I said, this is more the 3D version of shape. Although when we're talking about jewelry, those lines can get blurred pretty easily. They're very similar, shape and form. Space. Now, space is a little bit trickier to understand at first, so it helps if we have some additional words to go along with space, additional vocab, to help really define what this element is. So some things to think about are negative space and positive space. So on this ring up here, Aspen's back. That's the cat, Aspen. Okay. Negative space, that's this empty space that's purposefully left empty here in this design. So this person that created this ring wanted to have these empty spaces within the lines on the ring. But then also the positive space is where the jewelry is, where it exists. And so down here in this example with these earrings, this jeweler was being very purposeful in not having any negative space. It was very intentional to keep all positive space, and it kind of has a different feel from something that would then have a lot more like open spaces in it. Another thing to think about with space is scale. And this is really important with jewelry. This might not come up as much as other forms of art with space, but for space and jewelry, we want to think about how much space does it occupy? Like, so this model here is wearing these earrings that are quite a statement and they take up a lot of space. And so just the use of physical space from this piece of jewelry is what really emphasizes it. It creates a visual weight. Like you can feel its weight, when you look at it. All right, so now let's talk about some principles. The principles are a little bit harder to think about than the elements. They are V, C, B, U, M, P, E, R. Do you know what any of those might be? They are variety, contrast, balance, unity, movement, pattern, emphasis, and rhythm. Any of those sound like something you've heard of before? I'm sure you've all been talking about patterns since like kindergarten. Let's talk about how these principles would be used in art. Oh man, I had a slide like this for elements and I guess I deleted it. Dang it. Well, so basically what you want to think of is the elements are like if you were to compare it to a pizza, right? Elements are the pizza toppings. And the principles would be how you'd arrange them on the pizza. it's not really the best analogy. Whenever I tell that in class, somebody rolls their eyes at me, and you're probably doing it now yourself at home. But if you were to take these pepperonis and, arrange them all in a circular pattern on here, and then maybe you make some lines with all the olives or something, then you'd be using certain principles to arrange all these elements. So when you take all those elements, texture, line, value, space, shape, form, color, and you put them into your art, those are the principles, are the way that you use those. So let's talk about these. Variety is the first principle, and it's definitely good to have a variety of a certain element. Too much of the same can sometimes not be as interesting, or it could be. Let's take some examples. So on this necklace here, we have a variety of colors going on. Now I want you to imagine if all the beads were all gold, or all copper, or all silver. It would have a different feel than it does now. This one gives it kind of a playful look to it, and maybe it would change the vibe if it were all the same color. So variety can be interesting and change the feeling of the piece. This necklace over here has a variety of textures. So this part here with the metal would feel very different than the beads here, and you can just tell by looking at that. This is one of those pieces that I'm like, that's a really cool art piece, but would I wear it? Probably not. Although I do remember my mom wearing necklaces like this back in the early 90s, and a lot of 90s things have come back, so watch me say this, and then in the next fashion magazine I read, they'll be promoting a new necklace like this that everyone should be wearing, and I'll own one in 6 months. But, whatever. Variety of shapes we have going on here. I actually really like these earrings. We have the shape triangles here, and then it, compares down here. We have the circular shapes. So we've got a variety of shape going on, and a variety of colors on this one as well. And this one. So there's a lot of variety things happening. And those are just some examples. Like, you could have a variety of literally any of the elements. It doesn't need to be these three. It could be a variety of line, a variety of forms, any of them. All right, now let's look at these same images, talk about contrast. Now, contrast is good in order to make the piece dynamic rather than a lot of repetition. Contrast can be helpful in your piece. So on this one, we have contrast of colors, or you could also think of this as contrast of values in this piece as well. And having two different colors next to each other creates some contrast visually. Like if you were to take a picture of this and make it black and white, like you would still see a range of value in these two, some contrast. In this necklace, we got a contrast of textures, just like we had variety of textures. They contrast against each other because this feels a lot smoother and this feels a lot rougher, and so they oppose one another. And then down here we have the contrast of the shapes. This one feels very open, this shape, and these shapes feel a lot more closed in because they are. And so that creates a dynamic piece having that contrast. All right, balance. So when we talk about balance, it really is mostly referring to symmetry. And when we look at these two pieces, which one's symmetrical, which one's asymmetrical? You got it. So symmetrical, this top one here is symmetrical, meaning it's the same on both sides. If you were to cut it in half, it'd be exactly the same both ways. And that way it creates like this sense of balance because we have the same happening. And there's not only is there symmetry from half and half on the whole necklace, but also each piece on here has symmetry. So there's a lot of interesting things going on there. This one over here, this more sculptural piece of jewelry, has asymmetrical balance, meaning that it's not the same on both sides, but the variety of weight in the two sides helps it to still feel balanced. If both of the sides of this necklace were as heavy as this one, it would probably feel like too much. But by this one being bigger and this one being smaller, they kind of balance each other out. This one has 4 petals on it, and this one has 2, so that balances each other as well. So variety of balance is good. Huh, see, using different things here. Contrast of colors. Contrast of shapes. All right, you get it. Keep going. All right, unity. So although you want a variety and contrast of things in your piece, unity is also really important. When you have unity in your jewelry, it feels unified. It feels that there's a similar theme happening throughout the whole piece. And in order to do that in jewelry, it needs to have like a similar treatment to it. You wouldn't want to have, well, I'll get there. Let me talk about what we do have here. On this first one, we have unity of shapes because this shape is repeated, and so they all feels unified. The color feels unified. These lines have unity. The thickness of this line is about the same as the thickness of this line, so that feels unified as well. This kind of smooth shape mimics these smooth shapes, and they feel like they go together. This one over here has unity in the types of lines. There's a lot of organic lines. When I say organic, that means the opposite of geometric. So with geometric, we're thinking like triangles, squares, rectangles, things with harsh edges, versus organic is a lot more flowy and could go in any direction. Like I kind of have an organic ugly purple line that I drew on here, you know. But these organic shapes kind of create this like feeling of unity because these lines move around and you know it all comes together. And these lines that are on here are similar to these lines made from the metal as well. So there's our unity. This piece, oh, you know, I would have loved that in middle school. What a waste of my money would have been wearing that back then. All right, well, this necklace is lacking unity because there is too many things going on. The balance is like, ah, and just yikes. So it needed to commit to one thing, like just stick with these bead things going on over here, or just stick with some of these beads, but not all of them. Just, yeah. You see what I mean about lacking unity? I thought so. Okay. So over here, we're going to talk about movement. Now, usually when I first mention movement to students with art, they tend to think that it is something like literally it's moving. But that's, I mean, it could be, especially when talking about jewelry, things do move, and like how does the piece move on you, like, and such like that. But most of the time we're talking about movement in art, we're really talking about what the viewer's eyes are doing. So you are the viewer right now looking at these pieces. As you look at the lines on here, do you feel your eyes kind of move around and follow the lines up or down around the piece? The movement is showing you what to do and how to look, where to go, how to navigate this piece of art. So on here, like, when I look at this piece, I tend to either start here and then follow these lines down and around here and then back up. Or maybe I start here and follow these kind of upward feelings here. On this one, I tend to kind of start here and I follow the lines up and around. Woo, and it just feels very organic in the movement. So there you go. That's movement. You always want some of that in your piece. Pattern. So pattern and repetition, I'm sure you know all about pattern. You've been learning about that for a very long time. There's very exact patterns like we see over here in the beaded bracelet, or patterns can be a little bit more approximate, just any kind of repetition that you feel in a piece. So it's got kind of this repeated motif of, that's kind of repetitive, isn't it? Oh my gosh, I was going to use the word repetition. This has a leaf motif going on, and that gives it pattern as well. All right, emphasis. So, emphasis has to do with what you want to stand out in the piece. What do you want to catch the viewer's eye? Now, in this set of earrings, there's contrasting colors. We have nickel here, copper here, and because they're not the same color, because they contrast, it creates emphasis in like this variety of shapes going on. If you were to see this piece and it was all nickel, which is the silver color, then you probably wouldn't notice that there's two pieces of metal there as much as if there's a variety of color. Now over here, there's this swirl pattern going on, and that's going to be the emphasis, the focal point of the jewelry. So, even if someone were wearing this bracelet, this movement here of these lines and how these swirly pieces are bigger and thicker than the rest of the bracelet creates emphasis on the way that part is treated differently than the rest of the bracelet. So, yeah. That bracelet's cool. I want that one. Someone want to make that for me? That'd be great. All right. And last but not least in our principles is rhythm. So rhythm's a little bit harder to explain, I feel like, because it's kind of just inherent. You just gotta feel it. You gotta feel the rhythm, you know? Yeah, okay. Don't roll your eyes. Please stop. All right. Now, rhythm, I'm just gonna read you what I wrote. Rhythm to me feels like the combination of movement, texture, and pattern. You put all those things together, you get rhythm. When you look at a piece with rhythm, you can feel the path it's on. So think, does it feel rigid? Does it feel flowy, choppy? What kind of rhythm does this one have? Versus this one? Versus this one? It's kind of just inherent. Think about your rhythm. How do you feel it? I got rhythm. I've got jewelry. Okay, I'll stop. All right, so there you have it. Expressive features of art and design, also known as the elements and principles of art. Very important to know to create really great pieces of work. And if you want, I also have some little mnemonic devices to help you remember what they are. So over here with the texture one, which is elements, we have Tara loves science fiction comics. So Tara loves science fiction comics. That's how you can remember the elements. And this one's a little bit easier. Very cool bumper is how you can remember the principles. Very cool bumper. All right. And that's the end. Thanks for listening to my first screencast. Oh, second. Yeah, you got to meet Aspen, the cat. That was pretty great. And I hope you enjoyed it. Smash that subscribe button, Okay, I don't, but you could subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's all just going to be screencast for class. All right? If you guys have any questions about elements and principles going into the assignment that I have for you, please make some comments on the Padlet, ask one another, and let's go from there. Can't wait to see what you guys create.